Welcome back. This is segment 3 of Citizens Forum, being filmed on Tuesday, January the 26th, 2016. Our guest in this segment is Dan Doherty, and we're going to be talking about something that I think is very important. How do we begin to solve our big local problems? So is that okay? Welcome, Dan.
That's the big question.
Okay. So what are the issues and opportunities facing the people of Victoria? And when we say Victoria, we mean the whole CRD? Or
Sure. Yeah, I'd say regional, and I think that's also one of the big issues. So I grew up in Victoria, so I was born here, and I've watched it grow, and I've seen generations of governments pass through struggling with some of the same questions. And I think the big ones that we're faced with right now, something like around transportation, so this could be broadly interpreted such as the ENN, the Douglas Corridor, some sort of rapid transit that's a regional solution for moving big numbers of people around without all the clog, but also smaller things, specific things like the bridge and the lane treatment. Like we just went from this years of developing the city so there were 4 lanes of traffic, 2 in each direction, flipped it around, and now it's down to 2 lanes, 1 in each direction. So like this is huge with bicycle lanes added. So there's some political will, some decisions made, money allocated that got this huge change. So I'm not coming out on the goodness or badness or the effectiveness, but just that's the kind of scale of change across the region. So other things are like big ticket items: the sewage, the local transit, some kind of regional integration, cooperation, the costs, things like that. Those are some of the big cost items that we have to grapple with. I guess the bridge would be another one. How did we come to the decision to renew the bridge, and how did the cost double? Things like that.
You mean the Blue Bridge?
The Blue Bridge.
Yeah. Not double. Ooh. Yes.
Well, 60 to 1, probably 120 by the time it's done, right? So.
Plus social issues.
And social issues. The issues around homelessness, the tent city that's occurring right now outside the courthouse.
And
these are big, complex issues.
Yes. So those are some of the issues.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do we deal with them? How do we address them? What do we do to solve these problems, not make mistakes, do right things, best things?
Well, I think we can look some best practices that we see around the world of how these kind of things are solved. And there's some models that I've seen as a facilitator. There's a number of models that I work with. One of them is dynamic facilitation. We ran something called the Wisdom Council in Victoria a few years ago. And what I came to understand is that people know what's right and wrong. People know what the solution is. I mean, I don't know technically what the solution is for the sewage, but I know that there is a technical solution. There is a logical best solution that's going to be the most affordable, the most efficient. The question is, how do we have the conversation and the political will to implement a common sense process and solution?
Exactly. Like if we get together, we'll very possibly, if we're all open and honest, we'll come to the solution that works best for us. But when there are interests that have other goals in mind and they're powerful, they can very easily veer us off course, and they do.
That term interests is key, I think. It's very important to include stakeholders.
This is very important.
Very important to include stakeholders.
Okay. But
what I've come to see is that stakeholders have a stake, right? Like they dig it in the ground and they hang on to it, because they're, if any particular cause or focus, like, okay, I'm here to defend that. So they go to a city council meeting. I'm defending this cause. I'm a stakeholder,
it's
right?
the public interest that's the most
So how do you get outside that, where people are straightforward and honest? And the concept, it's kind of exciting thought for the Senate of Canada would be like random selection. And people think random selection is like chaos or just no concern. But mathematically, random selection means everybody in the jurisdiction, everyone in the community has an equal opportunity to be selected to participate. So that's a very important concept.
And they go in for a period of time, and then they're out, and somebody else.
And they go in and they come out.
I would really like to look into that.
That's how juries are supposed to work. People try to get out of them, but if what we did was we randomized the population. We used Greater Victoria, And then
this was
we do two
the
in
Citizens
the
Assembly.
Wisdom Council.
Wisdom Council,
yeah,
yes.
the Wisdom Council. The Citizens Assembly also uses a random selection process. But, so we randomized using the phone book, which is, it's fraught with some problems, but it was the best we could do with the tools we had. And we heard from people, there were people with names you couldn't pronounce. There were, there were old people, young people. There was a whole range of people that we ended up involving that would not normally come forward. We had to talk them into coming forward. And the things they had to say were amazing. They had solutions. And together, political stripes didn't show up.
You were part of a group that brought together just a randomly selected group of people.
Yeah.
And gave them a chance. And I saw what they said. I saw it on YouTube. It was wonderful, wonderful. I don't remember the words, but they were beautiful.
There's a reason it's called a wisdom council. It's not like we're smart guys, but there is a collective wisdom.
Yes, yes.
There's one dynamic that occurred, in that there's often a quiet person, and we'd be rattling away around these issues, and someone would be quiet. And as the facilitator, I'd notice this, so I invite them to be included, but they're quiet. But at the end, often the quiet person will articulate exactly what has been going on and summarize it. They just listen quietly. They see all the dynamics, and they drop a gem into the conversation. So where in the rabble of city council or other things does that quiet person get to have their voice in? And so it's a process like this that draws up that collective wisdom and then can bring it into the decision-making process. When decisions are made by stakeholders who are anchored to a cause, or other kinds of interests, political stripe or whatever, or have bought into a particular fiscal model or something like that, and then they're busy saving face, like, well, we said this is going to be the solution, so we have to forward that solution now, and they can't step back from it.
So I think citizens' assemblies, wisdom councils, would be a great idea on the local, provincial, and federal levels. I mean, if we want to solve homelessness, then we should bring together provincially and federally, one for BC, one for Canada, or one for BC, 5 for Canada, wisdom councils, groups of citizens, and just have them look at the problem and come up with solutions. And they will. And I think the problem is our own governments are controlled by people who don't want solutions, which is why we don't get them. All we get is more problems.
There's a lot of legal things. There's a lot of entanglement. Say the tent city that's at the law courts. So homelessness is a very complex thing. Even just calling it homelessness, it's not necessarily people are homeless. Some people choose to live in the rough. Some people, it's mental health. Some it's drug addiction. Some, it's a very complex form of things. Sometimes the shelters aren't safe. So it's not an obvious thing. So it takes a multifaceted view to look at the truth of it. And I would bet that those who are in the situation, given a voice, helped facilitate it to express what they need, would have some important information to contribute about how they got there and how they could get out of that.
Yeah, but I'd say the people running the show, the people running the country, have no intention of solving this problem. That's why we can't solve it. They won't let it be solved. That's another issue that we have to deal with.
I was impressed by the Vancouver approach, which was a 4-pillar approach, I believe. I don't recall how it exactly turned out, but at least they were heading in that direction of let's hear from all of the players. I mean, stakeholders as well, but this idea of random selection. If you randomly selected from the population of Victoria and spoke to them about what they saw as the issues related to, for instance, homelessness, and how to solve it, you would get some really interesting, differently nuanced solutions that might not be politically viable with the current group who are in power.
We need more homes.
But they would be practical solutions, And the thing about this is the wisdom piece is coming to a third kind of choice. It isn't, do they go in a home? Do they live in the park? Do they go into some other shelter? It's not like these pylons of solutions or these silos of solutions, but some other way we haven't figured out yet. And the magic of a facilitated group of people speaking their truth, it elevates the conversation, and through them come this wisdom, and they see another way.
So, I mean, to me, I really think the idea is great and important, and through history, citizens' assemblies have played roles. We just don't know about them. So, is there anything happening in that in that thing in Canada anywhere? I mean,
Victoria, or actually, Canada has been a leader in that way, because Maclean's sponsored a Citizens Assembly nationally some years ago. And it was quite a powerful result. Like, they got really great information out of it. And there was one that was convened for to choose an electoral system for BC.
Yes.
So now, unfortunately,
That worked well.
Well, yeah, the process worked well. Unfortunately, it was then put to a yes/no referendum. So there was this highly democratic process, which was then put to a debate model to be validated. So, but the process was very strong. And there's a fellow in Victoria, Simon Zakowski, who's starting up a Citizens Assembly process in Victoria. It's
Really?
called BC Speaks. So it's grassroots. Actually, we're going to run a pilot at Vic High. With students there, and they're going to learn about, it's in their civics class, so we're prototyping it there. But it's a solid model, so this idea of random selection, so everyone has a voice, and then that there's a deliberation, in this case informed, so you can bring in an expert to bring the technical.
I want to follow up on that,
Okay.
but you had one last thing you wanted to talk about, and we're almost out of time, which is what can people do?
Okay. Well, I think this idea of having your voice come forward. Often it's the same voices, say, speaking out loudly about things. But if people trust their inner voice and find some way to express it in a respectful way, that can be really helpful. So I would encourage your listeners of this program to consider the next time they post something on the web, or the next time they write a letter to the editor or something like that, to consider some of the balance and not just throw it as an opinion piece, because opinions are cheap. But an informed, balanced argument, thoughtful argument, has much more value, and it forwards the conversation and actually moves us towards a solution rather than just polarizing us into us and them. So I would invite people to do that.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Important stuff. I think it's great. Thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum.